Good morning, children. Sairam. I hope you all are very well at home. So, again, I welcome you all in history class. So, children, today we will continue with the history second chapter, New Kings and Kingdoms, part 2. So, children, before moving further, let's take a quick recap what you have learned in the previous video. So in previous video we just talk about how Samant and subordinates they declared themselves independent kings. So children, during the period of 7th to 12th century, many new dynasty emerged in different parts of the continent. For example, Gurjar Pratihara in Malwa region, Rashtrakud in Karnataka, Pallavs in Kanchipuram, South India, and Pala in Bengal, Chauhans in Delhi, Ajmer, and in South India, Cholas. So there are many dynasties that emerged in different parts of the subcontinents. So the new rulers were previously like the big landlords or the warriors, chief, they working under the existing kings as subordinates or the Samant, right? These Samant and subordinates, they working under the existing kings. Now these Samant and subordinates, they gradually gained power and wealth because they have their own military, they have their own region, they have their own wealth. So gradually they gained power and wealth, and thereafter they declared themselves Mahasamant and Mahamandaleshwara, the great lord of a circle or region. Then they were now independent lord, right? Dantedurg. Who was Dantedurg? Dantedurg was the warrior chief of Rashtrakud, and as I told you, Rashtrakud basically they were Samant under the Chalukyas, right? So Dantedurg was the warrior chief of Rashtrakud. He just overthrew his Chalukyas overlord and performed ritual known as Hiranyagar. As I told you, children, Dantedurg was not Kshatriya by birth. So he performed Hiranyagar ritual which talks about rebirth of Kshatriya. So this ritual he performed with the help of the Brahmins, and he overthrew Chalukya's overlordship, and he declared himself independent and established independent empire. Is it clear? Okay. Now let's see the content which we will cover in this video. So in this video, we cover warfare for wealth and expansion. Next one is a closer look, the Cholas. Okay, so next topic is warfare for wealth. So every ruling dynasty tried to control other areas for wealth by means of war. How? Let's understand with the help of the examples. Students, I think you all have heard and studied about many kings, or most of the kings, they just fought many battles in their life. So why did they do this? Yes, they did it in order to extend their empire, in order to extend their areas, in order to just gain more and more powers. That's why they just fought many battles in their life. Okay, so to understand this concept, here I am going to take first example of those dynasties, those who were fought for expansion and wealth. So, first dynasty was the Gurjar Pratiharas, second one is the Pala, and third one is the Rashtrakud. So, Gurjar Pratihara basically ruled here, that means the Malwa, Rajasthan region, and Pala in Bengal, and Rashtrakud in Karnataka. Okay, just look at this. Kannauj. Basically, Kannauj, children, at that time is a kind of a place, and Kannauj, this lie in Ganga Valley. Where it is lie? Ganga Valley, and it is considered commercially very important at that time. and at that time basically Kannauj was considered the symbol of power, and this position later acquired by the Delhi. Second thing is, for Kannauj basically it's lie in the North India, right, which is fertile and which is very suitable for agriculture, and its rich resources of trade as well as agriculture. That's why these three dynasty, Gurjar Pratihara, Pala and Rashtrakut, they always fought with each other to only control over the Kannauj, right? Gurjar Pratihara, Pala, Rashtrakut, these three dynasties, they fought with each other only to control over the Kannauj. Why Kannauj? Because as I told you, Kannauj at that time commercially very important place, and it is lie in Ganga Valley, that means in northern India region, which is very fertile and which is very suitable for the agriculture and its rich resources of trade. That's why these three dynasties, that means the Gurjar Pratihara, Pala and Rashtrakut, they fought for to control over the Kannauj. So this struggle is known as tripartite struggle, right? This struggle between the Gurjar Pratihara, Pala, Rashtrakut for the Kannauj. So this struggle is known in history as tripartite struggle. Why tripartite struggle? Because in this struggle, three parties involved, three dynasties involved. First one is the Gurjar Pratihara, second one is the Pala, and the third one is the Rashtrakut. So is it clear what was the tripartite struggle? Tripartite struggle, basically in this struggle, three parties, three dynasties were involved. First one is Gurjar Pratihara, Pala, Rashtrakut, and these three dynasties, they fought with each other to control over the Kannauj, right? So this was the first example for expansion and wealth. Now next one is, children, I think you all know that rulers are always try to demonstrate their power and resources by building large temples. So whenever they just attacked one's other's kingdoms, so they always targeted wealthy temples, right? They always targeted wealthy temples which were extremely rich. So one of the most famous ruler was Sultan Muhammad of Ghazni, who belongs to Afghanistan. So Sultan Muhammad of Ghazni, who belongs to Afghanistan, and he just ruled from 997 to 1030 CE. He just ruled over the large part of Central Asia, Iran, northwest part of subcontinent. But children, do you know, he raided Indian subcontinent almost every year, and he always targeted wealthy temples. But his aim was not to set up his empire in India, and his aim was not to rule over the people of India. Rather, his aim was only to looted wealth of India. So for that, he just plundered all the wealthy temples of India. For example, Somnath temple in Gujarat, he just looted all the wealth, and then he just went back to his place Ghazni, and he built a splendid city at Ghazni. But when he just went back to his place, he just wanted somebody just wrote about Indian subcontinent. So for that, he just hired a scholar, and his scholar name was Al-Biruni, and he just wrote account of Indian subcontinent. So Al-Biruni, he just wrote Kitab al-Hind, account of subcontinent, and this account of subcontinent remain the important source for the historians. So this was the second example for the expansion or the wealth. Is it clear? Okay. Now just move on to the third examples, Chauhans or Chahamanas. So first just tell me, children, so where Chauhans or Chahamanas ruled? So they ruled over Delhi and Ajmer, and they opposed by Chalukyas of Gujarat and the Gandhwals of western Uttar Pradesh, while attempting to expand control to west and east. The best known Chahamana ruler was Prithviraj III. Basically, Prithviraj III defeated Afghan rulers Sultan Muhammad Ghazni in 1191, but lost to him a very next year, that means in 1119 too. Prithviraj III, basically one of the best ruler of Chauhans, and he just defeated Afghan rulers Sultan Muhammad Ghori in 1191, but he just lost to him the very next year, that means in 1192. So these three examples of the warfare for the wealth. First one is the tripartite struggle. The tripartite struggle, basically Gurjar Pratihara, Pala and Rashtrakoot. These three dynasties involved in this struggle, and they struggle to control over the Kannauj. And the second example was Sultan Muhammad Ghazni, and he just raided subcontinent almost every years, and he always targeted wealthy temples. And next one is the Chauhans or the Chahamanas, right? Okay, now just move on to the next topic. Next topic is a closer look, the Cholas. Dynasties, temples, sculptures and administration. Okay, so children, first of all, so who were Cholas and how did Cholas rise to power? So rise of Cholas to power. So first of all, who were Cholas? Cholas were Samant. They were not ruler initially, they were Samant. They were Samant under the Pallav, right? Cholas were Samant under the Pallav. Basically a very minor chiefly family in south subordinates to Pallav, and they ruled Mutrayars, that means they held power in region around the Kaveri Delta. Second one is the Cholas. They held power in Orayu. So these Cholas, they were Samant and subordinates under the Pallav, just like a Samant. But one day, Vijayalaya, that means he was the warrior chief of Chola, he just captured Kaveri Delta, this region. So one day Vijayalaya, he was the warrior chief of Chola, he just captured Kaveri Delta, and then he just built a town, Thanjavur, and he also built a temple there, Nishumbi Sudri there. Slowly and gradually, Chola, a small dynasty, become a huge empire. All the Pandyas and the Cheras territories now under the Chola kingdom. Now the Chola dynasty, basically Chola kingdoms grew in size and power with the conquest of neighboring areas by the successors of Vijayalaya. So as I said, Vijayalaya was the Chola's warrior chief, and first he captured Kaveri Delta and he just built a town of Thanjavur, and he also built a temple there. So his successor also just grew his size and power with the conquest of neighboring areas. The Pandyas and Pallav territories to the south and north became part of Chola Empire now. Rajaraj first, he was considered the most powerful Chola ruler, right? Raja Raj I, he was considered the most powerful Chola ruler, and he became king in 1985 and expanded control over most of the areas. He recognized the administration of the empire very efficiently, and his son Rajendra first. He also continued his policies, and even he just raided the Ganga Valley, Sri Lanka, and the countries of Southeast Asia, and developing a navy of these expeditions. Right? Temples of Chola Empire. Temple at Thanjavur and Ganga Chola was built by Rajaraj and Rajendra. So Chola temples were often became the nuclear settlement which grew around them. Right. Second thing is these were the center of craft production, and temples were often endowed with land by the rulers as well as the others. Now, among us, the craft associated with temple, the making of bronze images was the most distinctive. So, the Cholas bronze images consider among us the finest in the world. Just look at this Nataraj bronze statue of dancing Shiva. Now, how did the Chola rulers improve agriculture? Actually, most of the achievements of Cholas were made possible through the development of agriculture or cultivation in Tamil Nadu. So, although agriculture had developed earlier in other regions of Tamil Nadu, and it is only for 5th or 6th century that this areas was opened up for the agriculture. So for that, forest had to be cleared in some areas, and land had to be leveled in other regions. In the delta regions, embankment was built or constructed to prevent flood. Canals were also constructed to carry water to the field. And children, do you know, at that time in many areas, in some areas basically, two crops were grown in a year, and in other case, if we talk about in other cases, so in other cases it is a necessary water crops artificially. So for that they were used variety of methods for irrigations. First of all, they just dug wells. They also constructed huge tanks. They constructed huge tanks to collect rainwater. And children, just remember that for irrigation or for cultivation, you require planning, organizing, labor and resources, maintaining this work and deciding how this water is to be shared. And at that times, many rulers as well as peoples belongs to the villages, they took an active interest in the agriculture. Now move on to the next. Do you know, children, in Chola inscription, uh, they just mention different kinds of land. So these are the categories of the land. Like first one is the Velenvegai, second one is the Brahmadaya, next one is the Shala Bhog, Devdan, and next one is the Pali Chanda. So Velenvegai land, these lands they just given to the non-Brahmins, right? At that time, these lands they just given to the non-Brahmins. Next one is the Brahmadaya. These lands they just gifted to the Brahmins, right? Brahmadaya, these lands they just gifted to the Brahmins. Next one is the Shalabhog. These lands they just give to maintenance of a school. And Devdan, these land they just gifted to the temples. And the last one is the Pali Chandam. These lands they just donated to the Jain institutions. Is it clear? Velenvegai for the non-Brahmins, Brahmadaya for the Brahmins, Shalabhog for the maintenance of a school, Devdan for the temple, and Pali Chandam donated to the Jain institution. Clear? Now, Chola administration. The Chola state basically was a centralized, bureaucratized monarchy, maintained large royal standing army, which was recruits and controlled by the Chola rulers directly, and it was administered in following ways. First, like local level Brahmins village assemblies, they formed Sabha. Non Brahmanical assemblies, Nadu, or the local peasants assemblies, they were known as Or. They performed many administrative functions together. Next one is rich peasants of Velal caste. They exercised considerable control over affairs of Nadu under the supervision of central Chola government. Right? They just work under the supervision of Chola, central Chola government. Now, the association of traders were known as Nagaram, right? Association of traders known as Nagaram occasionally performed administrative functions in town. Sabha just looked after Brahmadaya Sabha and had separate committees to look after irrigation work, temple and charity and so on. Last, members of Sabha got elected through a lucky draw, right? So this is all about the Chola administration. Okay, now the important terminologies. First one is Sultan. Sultan basically is an Arabic word which means ruler, right? Sultan means is an Arabic word which means ruler. Okay, at that time basically children, these kings, they just give so many titles to the rich landlords. So for example, like the Mubenda Velen, and next one is the Arya. Next is tripartite struggle, a struggle involving three parties, right? So first one is the Gurjar Pratihara, Pala and Rashtrakoot. These three parties involved in this struggle. That's why this struggle is called the tripartite struggle. Next one is the Nagaram. Nagaram, association of traders, right? Next one is the old settlements of peasants. Sabha means assembly of Brahmin landowners. Samant. Samant, the subordinates of kings or the overlords who used to bring gifts for their kings or overlords. Next one is the Prashasti. It is a Sanskrit word which means in praise of. Prashasti means in praise of. And the last one is the Sabha. Sabha means like a assembly of Brahmins. Is it clear, children? Okay. Now, points to remember, which is very important actually. So all these important dynasties that emerged during the medieval time period. So let's read where they ruled. First one is the Gurjar Pratihara. So Gurjar Pratihara, they ruled over Rajasthan, right? Next one is the Rashtrakuts. Rashtrakoot, they ruled over Western Deccan. Next one is the Chola rulers. Chola rulers ruled over Tamil Nadu. Next one is the Pala. They ruled over Bengal. Next, Chalukyas. They ruled over Karnataka. And the last one is the Pallav. They ruled over Kanchipuram in South India. Right? Okay. Now, children, let's recall what we have learned in this chapter. So, in this chapter, we learned many powerful kingdoms emerged in the early medieval time period, that means 700 to 1200 AD. And most of these Rajput kingdoms were regional in nature and always at fight with one another. So, the Rajput kingdoms of North India and the Deccan. First one is the Palas. They ruled over the Bengal. Pratiharas, Gurjar Pratiharas, Malwa. Rashtrakoot, basically Maharashtra and Karnataka, Chauhans, Ajmer and Delhi, Chalukyas, Gujarat, and the last one is the Gandwalas, that means they ruled over the Kannauj. Next one is the tripartite struggle. Like the Palas, the Gurjar Pratihar, and Rashtraput, they always fight or fought to establish as well as retain control over the Kannauj. But none of them could hold over Kannauj for a long time. Eventually, they become weak and fell prey to the Turkish invasion. Basically, this struggle weakened their power. The Rajputs, who were considered to be Kshatriyas, were divided into the Chandvanshi, moon family, and the Suryavanshis, that means the sun family. Rajputs were brave, fearless, and born in the spirit of this self-sacrifice. But lack of cooperation as well as prevailing disunity led to their defeat one by one. That means in peninsular India, the Pallav and the Cholas emerged as powerful in the early medieval period. So children, that's all about your chapter. Here your chapter is finished. So now what you have to do, you have to just uh, write down these points to remember in your notebook, and also write down these important terminology in your notebook and also learn it. Thank you children, and have a nice day.